Hare Krishna, somebody can please lead the invocation prayers.
Hare Krishna, may I do this, Prabhu?
Yeah.
Om Jnana-Timirandasya Jnananjana-Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Ham Sri Guru Sri Yutabhata Kamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavcha Sri Rupam Sagarajam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Satam Sajivam Sadvaitam Syavadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Jinabando Jagatpati Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Risabhanu Sutatevi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatrupyascha Kripa Sindhubhaya Ivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna.
Krishna, thank you all for coming. So today we will cover Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 22, from verse number 17 onwards. First, let me answer Shivangi's question from last class on Ashwini Kumaras. So Ashwini Kumaras are twin brothers. They are sons of Sun God. Ashwini Kumaras are different from the four Kumaras that we are discussing here. The four Kumaras are the sons of Brahmaji, and the four Kumaras always stay as 4 or 5-year-old children. Ashwini Kumaras are celestial physicians. Ashwini Kumaras are also the fathers of Nakul and Sahadev, the 4th and 5th Pandava brothers. Madri as the mother, via Kunti Maharani using her special benediction to invite any personality, and by keeping Madri in front while reciting those prayers to call any personality, so that Madri becomes pregnant by that personality. Shivangi.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It's helpful.
All right. So let's start with you all explaining one or more points from before and asking one or more questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Shalini.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So the one question, homework question you asked is, what is the chief concern of a Vaishnava? So the chief concern of a Vaishnava is to deliver the fallen souls. So here examples, of course, the example which is given in the purport was of Prahlad Maharaj, who was a pure devotee who came to this material world and underwent all kinds of tribulations and difficulties and suffering, and even delivered his own father who was so cruel. And another example which immediately came to my mind is Srila Prabhupada, like at the senior age, how he came to United States and then to North America, and then how he suffered heart attacks on the Jaladuta, and then after that when he came, how much of tribulations he underwent and in this place in North America, and then how Krishna consciousness has been spread everywhere, and the books he wrote and what all, how much ever he's done, Prabhu, with so much difficulties.
Yeah, very good. Correct point about Srila Prabhupada as well. That if you actually read Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita, it's mind-boggling that how much troubles Srila Prabhupada went through for all of us. But that's the nature of a Vaishnava, that he will tolerate anything and everything just to serve the Lord. Yeah, very good, Mother Jija.
Prabhuji, a Vaishnava will be always compassionate towards everybody, especially sinful persons suffering from hellish life within this material world, Prabhuji.
Yeah, very good. Correct point. Rest of you.
So,
Shivangi.
Prabhuji, may I try about Kumaras are not asked about their good fortunes. Can I try this one?
Shivangi first.
Just a question, Prabhuji. Does that the ability to tolerate does that get more and more as someone gets purified?
You are correct. So
Thank you, Prabhuji.
when you are purified, the material world miseries do not affect you. Therefore, we say that they are tolerant, but actually it's not affecting the pure devotee at all, because the pure devotee is always about the modes of material nature, and all these dualities and miseries are part of the modes. Shivangi.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Charan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, about the other question, Prabhuji. Why Kumaras were not asked about the good fortunes? They are always engaged in the path of liberation, strictly following the path of spiritual advancement, are always fortunate. Duality of the auspicious and inauspicious does not arise. Pratu Maharaja asking about auspiciousness not for the Kumaras but for his own sake. Not to waste time asking Kumaras about welfare, he preferred to inquire whether he could soon be relieved from dangers of materialistic existence. This is my understanding.
Okay, very good. Correct point. Any questions, comments, realizations? Okay, so we will continue from where we left off. Context is that Prathu Maharaj welcomes and praises the Kumaras, plus inquires from the Kumaras. So Canto 4, Chapter 22, verse number 17 to 40 is part 2. Title is Sanat Kumara answers Prathu Maharaj's questions in detail. So Prathu Maharaj's speech was meaningful, questions were beneficial for all, and the meeting of devotees is beneficial for all because they will only discuss Krishna Katha. Shivangi, 17 to 19 translations, they are straightforward.
Hare Krishna. Text 17. The great sage Maitreya continued. Thus Sanat Kumara, the best of the celibates, after hearing the speech of Prithu Maharaja, which was meaningful, appropriate, and full of precise words and very sweet to hear, smiled with full satisfaction and began to speak as follows. Text 18. Sanat Kumara said, My dear King Prithu, I am very nicely questioned by you. Such questions are beneficial for all living entities, especially because they are raised by you who are always thinking of the good of others. Although you know everything, you ask such questions because that is the behavior of saintly persons. Such intelligence is befitting your position. When there is a congregation of devotees, their discussions, questions, and answers become conclusive to both the speaker and the audience. Thus, such a meeting is beneficial for everyone's real happiness.
So straightforward. And now Kumara's answer Prathu Maharaj's question from 4.22.15. So question from 4.22.15 is that while in the material world, what is the means to soon achieve the ultimate goal? So Kumaras will answer that attachment to the Lord and detachment from bodily concept of life is the solution to immediately attain the ultimate goal. Abhishek Prabhu, 2021 translations.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Text 21. It has been conclusively decided in the scriptures after due consideration
20
that the
and
ultimate goal.
20 and 2021.
Text 20. Text 20. Sanat Kumar continued. My dear king, you already have an inclination to glorify the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such attachment is very difficult to achieve. But when one has attained such unflinching faith in the Lord, it automatically cleanses lusty desires from the core of the heart. 21. It has been conclusively decided in the scriptures, after due consideration, that the ultimate goal for the welfare of human society is detachment from the bodily concept of life, and increased and steadfast attachment for the Supreme God, who is transcendental beyond the modes of material.
All right, straightforward. That is saying get attached to the Lord and detach from the body. Now, Kumaras will also describe the process. So in verses 22 to 36, describes Gyan Mishra Bhakti. So anyone remembers what is Gyan Mishra Bhakti? Somebody?
So, Hare Krishna Prabhu, where the bhakti is more and jnana is less.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so Gyan Mishra Bhakti means bhakti component is more while following the Gyan Marg. So Kumaras say to have attachment to the Lord and detachment from bodily concept. Hence in verses 22 to 24, he will describe that attachment to the Lord and detachment from bodily concept can be developed by the points that are going to get discussed in this verses 22 to 24. So we'll read and then we'll summarize. Mother Jija, 22 to 24 translations.
Text 22. Attachment for the Supreme can be increased by practicing devotional service, inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, applying Bhakti Yoga in life, worshipping the Yogeshwar, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These actions are pious in to make progress in spiritual life by not interested in sense gratification, and who associates with such persons life in such a way that he cannot live in peace without drinking the nectar of the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hari, one can be thus elevated by being disgusted with the taste for sense enjoyment. Text 24. A candidate for spiritual advancement must be non-violent, must follow in the footsteps of great acharyas, must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, must follow the regulative principles without material desire, and while following the regulative principles should not blaspheme others. A devotee should lead a very simple life and not be disturbed by the duality of opposing elements. He should learn to tolerate them. Hare Krishna.
So there are a lot of points in these verses, and I will summarize these points. That have faith, be inquisitive about the process of bhakti, apply bhakti yoga in life, worship the Lord or his devotee, regularly hear and chant the Lord's glories, not associate with persons who are interested simply in sense gratification and money, not associating with associates of materialistic people. So this is very important that we have to go to the next level also. That somebody is material, but then the friends who may have materialistic people, so we have to realize that those friends will also be contaminated. So both ways, not directly associating with materialistic, but also with friends who have friends as materialistic. So being disgusted with the taste for sense enjoyment, being satisfied in self, molding one's life so that one can live in peace, and one cannot be peaceful without drinking the nectar of Lord's qualities. Then being non-violent, following in the footsteps of great acharyas, remembering and tasting the sweetness of pastimes of the Lord, practicing yama, niyama, etc. without material desires, not criticizing others and not criticizing the method of religion of others. So we'll read about this in detail. Living a simple and plain life and tolerating duality. So quite a bit of points he explained in terms of how do you approach to attach to the Lord and detach from bodily concept of life. So in verse number 23 purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that Krishna consciousness movement is started for what purpose? Prabhupada explains that materialistic way of life is to earn money during the day and engage in sense gratification or sleep during night. Such people, they are never interested in understanding the real purpose of life. That who is God? What is the individual soul? What is the relationship between soul and God? So Krishna consciousness movement is started so that devotees have positive engagement. Just negating is not enough. We need positive engagement. So ISKCON centers give hundreds and thousands of devotees a chance to hear and chant, to accept spiritual master and to disassociate themselves from people who are materially interested. And Prabhupada explains that sometimes Some people, for their spiritual advancement, they give up their company of material society and go to a secluded place. Generally, Gyan Yogis do this. But Prabhupada says Gyan Yogis generally fall down because they don't take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. They don't engage in devotional services. Questions, comments, realizations? In verse number 24, purport paragraph number 2, Prabhupada explains that trying to advance on spiritual path without spiritual master is futile. Therefore, all must approach a bona fide spiritual master in one of the 4 official sampradayas. And in verse number 24 purport, Prabhupada also explains how should a devotee relate to different types of religious systems. Gopal, 24 purport, paragraph number 4, which starts another important point. Sorry, just that paragraph.
Hare Krishna. Paragraph 4. Another important point mentioned in this connection is Anindaya. We should not criticize others' methods of religion. There are different types of religious systems operating under different qualities of material nature. Those operating in the modes of ignorance and passion cannot be as perfect as that system in the modes of goodness. In Bhagavad Gita, everything has been divided into 3 qualitative divisions. Therefore, religious systems are similarly categorized. When people are mostly under the modes of passion and ignorance, their system of religion will be of the same quality. A devotee, instead of criticizing such systems, will encourage the followers to stick to their principles so that gradually they can come to the platform of religion in goodness. Simply by criticizing them, a devotee's mind will be agitated. Thus, a devotee should tolerate and learn to stop agitation. Hare Krishna.
Right, so devotee should not criticize other religious systems. They should just learn to tolerate, or if there is a chance to explain Krishna consciousness, then explain. So, live example that if Prabhupada meets, say, a Christian, Prabhupada will ask, do you follow Christianity strictly? And if the person says, yes, he's following Christianity, then Prabhupada says, yes, follow strictly Christianity. And if somebody is new, he says, no, I don't follow any religion, then Prabhupada says, then just take up Krishna consciousness rather than worrying about whatever other religion are there out there. So we don't criticize other religions because they are all under the modes. Most people in the material world are under the modes. We have to develop the quality of Anindaya, not to criticize anyone. Questions, comments, realizations? And in verse number 24, last paragraph, Prabhupada also explains how to deal with sickness of devotee. Chandran Prabhu, 24 purport, last paragraph, it starts, another feature of a devotee.
Hare Krishna. Another feature of the devotee is nirihaya, simple living. Niriha means gentle, meek or simple. A devotee should not live very gorgeously and imitate a materialistic person. Plain living and high thinking are recommended for a devotee. He should accept only so much as he needs to keep the material body fit for the execution of devotional service. He should not eat or sleep more than is required, simply eating for living and not living for eating, and sleeping only 6 to 7 hours a day are principles to be followed by devotees. As long as the body is there, it is subjected to the influence of climatic changes, disease, and natural disturbances, the threefold miseries of material existence. We cannot avoid them. Sometimes we receive letters from neophyte devotees questioning why they have fallen sick, although pursuing Krishna consciousness. They should learn from their verse that they have to become tolerant. Dandva titiksaya. This is the world of duality. One should not think that because he has fallen sick, he has fallen from Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness can continue without impediment from any material opposition. Lord Krishna therefore advised in Bhagavad Gita 2.14, Tams Titiksava Bharata. My dear Arjuna, please try to tolerate all these disturbances. Be fixed in your Krishna conscious activities. Hare Krishna.
And so Prabhupada gives practical example that sometimes devotees wrote Prabhupada that, oh, I am following Krishna consciousness. Why do I have to fall sick? Prabhupada says that material world is a place of duality. Therefore, learn to tolerate. We are still under the modes of material nature. The body is still material. So Krishna consciousness can continue without impediment of any material opposition. So this point is also explained in Parikshit Maharaj's pastime, that Parikshit Maharaj in the womb could perform Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada explains, how is it possible? Don't you need paraphernalia, etc.? Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness can continue any place, anywhere. In the womb also, the soul can chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Questions, comments, realizations so far? So now, verse number 25 describes that hearing process is the solution to get attached to the Lord and detached from matter. And verse number 26 describes the result of attachment to the Lord, and verse number 27 describes result of destruction of the subtle body. Shalini, 25 to 27 translations.
Hare Krishna, text 25, translation. The devotee should gradually increase the culture of devotional service by constant hearing of the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These pastimes are like ornamental decorations on the ears of devotees. By rendering devotional service and transcending the material qualities, one can easily be fixed in transcendence in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 26. Upon becoming fixed in his attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the grace of the spiritual master and by awakening knowledge and detachment, the living entity situated within the heart of the body and covered by the 5 elements burns up his material surroundings, exactly as fire arising from wood burns the wood itself. Text 27. When a person becomes devoid of all material desires and liberated from all material qualities, he transcends distinctions between actions executed externally and internally. At that time, the difference between the soul and the supersoul, which was existing before self-realization is annihilated. When a dream is over, there is no longer a distinction between the dream and the dreamer. Hare Krishna.
In verse number 26 purport, Prabhupada describes the result of attachment to the Lord is the destruction of the subtle body and 5 kinds of material attachments. So we'll read verse 26 purport to understand these destruction of the 5 kinds of material attachment. Shalini, 26 purport.
Hare Krishna. Verse 26 purport. It is said that both the Jivatma, the individual soul, and the Paramatma live together within the heart. In the Vedic version, it is stated, Hridi hi ayam atma. The soul and the super soul both live within the heart. The individual soul is liberated when it comes out of the material heart or cleanses the heart to make it spiritualized. The example given here is very appropriate. Yonim Ivotita Nya. Agni or fire comes out of wood, and by it the wood is completely destroyed. Similarly, when a living entity increases his attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is to be considered like fire. A blazing fire is visible by its exhibition of heat and light. Similarly, when the living entity within the heart becomes enlightened with full spiritual knowledge and detached from the material world, he burns up his material covering of the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and sky, and becomes free from the 5 kinds of material attachments, namely ignorance, false egoism, attachment to the material world, envy, and absorption in material consciousness. Therefore, Panchakmakam, as mentioned in this verse, refers to either of the 5 elements or the 5 coverings of material contamination. When these are all burned into ashes by the blazing fire of knowledge and detachment, one is fixed firmly in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless one takes shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and advances one's attraction for Krishna by the spiritual master's instructions, the 5 coverings of the living entity cannot be uncovered from the material heart. The living entity is centered within the heart, and to take him away from the heart is to liberate him. This is the process. One must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and by his instruction increase one's knowledge in devotional service, become detached from the material world, and thus become liberated. An advanced devotee, therefore, does not live within the material body, but within his spiritual body, just as a dry coconut lives detached from the coconut husk, even though within the husk. The pure devotee's body is therefore called Chinmaya Sarira, spiritualized body. In other words, a devotee's body is not connected with the material activities, and as such, a devotee is always liberated. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 14.26, Srila Rupa Goswami also confirms this. Iha yasya harer dasya karmana manasa gira nikleshva api avastasu jivan mukta sayuchite. Whatever his condition may be, one who is engaged fully with his body, mind, and speech in the service of the Lord is liberated even within this body. Hare Krishna.
So many times it comes up in scriptures about the need to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. And I requested all of you also to please consider to take a bona fide spiritual master. Even if you are not ready for initiation, even if you have no intent of initiation, take the bona fide spiritual master as Siksha Guru, and he will still guide you. Forget initiation. Just get guidance from a bona fide spiritual master. These are the injunctions of scriptures. So the 5 kinds of material attachments that one gives up by being attached to the Lord is ignorance, false ego, attachment to material world, envy, and absorption in material consciousness. Verse number 27 describes the result of destruction of subtle body is that first, one no longer sees external sense objects for own sense pleasure. Second, there is no internal disturbances such as lamentation. Third, there is no obstacles in seeing Paramatma, the obstacles which existed previously. Verse number 27 also describes the perfect idea of oneness between the soul and super soul. So Mayavadis have a misconception about this. And Prabhupada clarifies that what does this oneness mean? This oneness means that the soul's desires are identical to Lord's desire. Let's read. Shivangi, verse 27, purport.
Hare Krishna, text 27, purport. As described by Srila Rupa Goswami, Anyabhilasita Sunyam, one must be devoid of all material desires. When a person becomes devoid of all material desires, there is no longer need for speculative knowledge of fruitive activities. In that condition, it is to be understood that one is free from the material body. The example is already given above. A coconut which is dry is loosened from its outward husk. This is the stage of liberation. As said in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.10.6, Mukti liberation means Svarupena Vedastatihi, being situated in one's own constitutional position. All material desires are present as long as one is in the bodily concept of life, but when one realizes that he is an eternal servant of Krishna, his desires are no longer material. The devotee acts in this consciousness. In other words, when material desires in connection with the body are finished, one is actually liberated. When one is liberated from the material qualities, he does not do anything for his personal sense gratification. At that time, all activities performed by him are absolute. In the conditioned state, there are 2 kinds of activities. One acts on behalf of the body, and at the same time, he acts to become liberated. The devotee, when he is completely free from all material desires or material qualities, transcends the quality of action for the body and soul. And the bodily concept of life is completely over. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Iha yasya hare dasye karmana manasa gira nikalasev api avastasu jivan mukta uchyate. When one is completely fixed in the service of the Lord, he is a liberated person in any condition of life. He is called jivan mukta, liberated even within this body. In such a liberated condition, there is no distinction between actions for sense gratification and actions for liberation. When one is liberated from the desires of sense gratification, he no longer has to suffer the reactions of lamentation or illusion. Activities performed by the karmis and jnanis are subject to lamentation and illusion, but a self-realized liberated person acting only for the Supreme Personality of Godhead experiences none. This is the stage of oneness or merging into the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This means that the individual soul, while keeping his individuality, no longer has separate interests. He is fully in the service of the Lord, and he has nothing to do for his personal sense gratification. Therefore, he sees only the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not himself. His personal interest completely perishes. When a person comes out of a dream, the dream vanishes. While dreaming, a person may consider himself a king and see the royal paraphernalia, his soldiers, etc., but when the dream is over, he does not see anything beyond himself. Similarly, a liberated person understands that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, acting in accordance with the desire of the Supreme Lord, and as such, there is no distinction between himself and the Supreme Lord, although both of them retain their individuality. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. This is the perfect conception of holiness in relation to the super soul and the soul. Hare Krishna.
Right, so materialistic, they are subject to lamentation and illusion, but a self-realized liberated person who is acting only for the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not experience these material turbulation. Prabhupada says this is the stage of oneness, means merging into the existence of the Lord, means the individual soul, he continues his individuality, but he has no separate interest than the Lord. He is fully engaged in service of the Lord and has nothing to do for his personal sense gratification. Therefore, he only sees the Lord and his services. Questions, comments, realizations so far? So verse number 28, 29 describe the effects of presence of subtle body as well as the effects of absence of subtle body. So we'll first read and then we'll make a two-column chart. Mother Jija, 28, 29 translation.
Text 28. When the soul exists for some sense gratification, he creates different desires, and for that reason, he becomes subjected to designations. But when one is in the transcendental position, he is no longer interested in anything except fulfilling the desire of the Lord. Text 29. Only because of different causes does a person see a difference between himself and others. Just as one sees the reflection of a body appearing differently manifested on water, on oil, or in a mirror. Hare Krishna.
So make a two-column chart. Left column is titled Presence of Subtle Body. Right column is Absence of Subtle Body. So verse 28 says, under presence of subtle body, that one is subjected to various designations and he sees himself as enjoyer due to desires, sees things of this world as objects of sense enjoyment, sees the results of happiness and distress. On the right column, under absence of subtle body for verse 28, one sees Paramatma and one tries to fulfill the Lord's desires. Similarly, for verse 29, under the column presence of subtle body, one sees differences in bodies of oneself and others, just as one sees a reflection of body appearing differently in water, oil, or mirror. And under absence of subtle body for 29, one does not see such differences. Everybody populating?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Verses 30 to 34 describe that attachment to sense gratification is the cause of samsara. Abhishek Prabhu, 30 to 32 translation. So these verses describe that sense gratification is the cause of destruction of self.
Hare Krishna. 30 to 32, Prabhuji.
Correct.
Text 30. When one's mind and senses are attracted to sense objects for enjoyment, the mind becomes agitated. As a result of continually thinking of sense objects, one's real consciousness almost becomes lost, like the water in a lake that is gradually sucked up by the big grass straws on its bank. 31. When one deviates from his original consciousness, he loses the capacity to remember his previous position or recognize his present one. When remembrance is lost, all knowledge acquired is based on a false foundation. When this occurs, learned scholars consider that soul is lost. 32. There is no stronger obstruction to one's self-interest than thinking other subject matters to be more pleasing than one's self-realization.
So step-by-step process of destruction of the self is stated that first, thinking of sense gratification. Second, mind becomes agitated. Third, discriminating power of intelligence is lost. Fourth, memory is lost. And fifth, knowledge is destroyed. Everybody got the step-by-step process?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, just one thing, when we were writing down these points, it just came to my mind, even Dhyayata Vishayam Pumsa also somewhat, not exactly, but how sense gratification then leads to lust, how the progression happens, Prabhu, that just came to mind.
Yeah, very good, correct realization. And bang to the point, verse 2.62. Dhyayato Vishayam Pumsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kama Krota Abhijayate. And exactly that's the point being explained here, that step one is thinking of sense gratification. Well, we are already on the fall down sequence. Very good. Thank you. So verse number 33 describes the result of sense gratification is that sense gratification leads to lower life forms. Shalini, 33, straightforward ones.
Hare Krishna, text 33, translation. For human society, constantly thinking of how to earn money and apply it for sense gratification brings about the destruction of everyone's interests. When one becomes devoid of knowledge and devotional service, he enters into species of life like those of trees and stones. Hare Krishna.
So now the conclusion is described in verse 34, that be detached from things that obstruct the Purusha Arthas. Gopal, 34 to 36 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 34. Translation. Those who strongly desire to cross the ocean of nescience must not associate with the modes of ignorance, for hedonistic activities are the greatest obstructions to realization of religious principles, economic development, regulated sense gratification, and at last, liberation. Text 35 translation. Out of the four principles, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, liberation has to be taken very seriously. The other three are subject to destruction by the stringent law of nature, death. Text 36 translation. We accept as blessings different states of higher life, distinguishing them from lower states of life. But we should know that such distinctions exist only in relation to the interchange of the modes of material nature. Actually, these states of life have no permanent existence, for all of them will be destroyed by the Supreme Controller. Hare Krishna.
So of the four Purusharthas, moksha is most important. Therefore, we should spend time on how to attain liberation, but nobody is interested. Everybody is interested in economic development and sense gratification. Verse 36, the last line we read, that for all of them will be destroyed by the Supreme Lord. Lord destroys all our temporary goals so as to help us. So an analogy is given in verse number 36, that children may play on the beach and the father will sit and watch these children play, the constructions of buildings with sand, the construction of walls and so many things. But finally the father will ask the children to come home. Then everything is destroyed. So persons who are too much addicted to childish activities of economic development and sense gratification are sometimes specially favored by the Lord when He destroys their construction of these things. In the purport, Prabhupada has this very well-known verse, Anugrahami, what's the verse? I forget. Yes, I forget. It's, yeah. Yasya aham anugrahami parishyet tad dhanam shana. It's 10.88.8. Very easy verse to remember. Also the reference that when Lord shows His special favor onto His devotee, then He takes away all the devotee's material opulences. Questions, comments, realizations so far?
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Sometimes this four Purushars are not seen as very good, if I'm mistaken. Like fifth Purusharth is seen as devotional service, or I am incorrect
Yeah,
here.
you are correct. The fifth is devotional service for sure. So Abhishek Prabhu is bang to the point, correct? That understand that the conversation is going on up to verse number 40. So Sanat Kumara's instruction is from verse number 17 to 40. So far he is describing Mishra Bhakti. Right? So he is describing Gyan Mishra Bhakti. Up to verse number 36, he has described Gyan Mishra Bhakti, and in verse number 37 and 38, he will describe Bhakti Mishra Gyan. And then in verse number 39 and 40, he will go on to describe pure devotional service, because he will see Prithu Maharaj's face that Prithu Maharaj is not very satisfied with all this. So Abhishek Prabhu, you are bang to the point, correct, that I'm not satisfied. Exactly how Prithu Maharaj is also going to be not satisfied. So the instruction will end with, at verse number 40, that, okay, come to pure devotional service. Yeah, you are right now in Mishra Bhakti, but come to your devotional service, that will satisfy you. Abhishek Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Right, thank you for listening with rapt attention. So verse number 37, 38 describe Bhakti Mishra Gyan. Bhakti Mishra Gyan means Gyan part is more, where you try to understand that the super soul within your heart and surrender to the super soul. Chandran Prabhu, 37, 38 translation.
Hare Krishna. Sanat Kumara advised the king, therefore, my dear King Prithu, try to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within everyone's heart, along with the individual soul, in each and every body, either moving or not moving. The individual souls are fully covered by the gross material body and subtle body made of the life, air, and intelligence. Text 38. The Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests himself as one with the cause and effect within this body, but one who has transcended the illusory energy by deliberate consideration, which clears the misconception of a snake for a rope, can understand that the Paramatma is eternally transcendental to the material creation and situated in pure internal energy.
Material contamination.
Material creation, Prabhuji.
It's
It is
contaminated.
written as a material creation in my book.
Okay, okay. It should be actually contamination. That's what
Sorry, I will correct it, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Thank you. Material contamination and situated in pure internal energy. Thus, the Lord is transcendental to all material contamination. Unto him only must one surrender. Hare Krishna.
So it's this last line where it says contamination, which is what I was pointing out. So where previously it says material creation, that part is correct. So I will read what it should be then. Paramatma is eternally transcendental to material creation and situated in pure internal energy. Thus, the Lord is transcendental to all material contamination. Unto him only one must surrender.
Yes, Prabhuji, correct.
So, this concept of soham, that impersonalist thing, soham means the Lord and Jiva are one. We already discussed in previous verse, the oneness is not that the soul loses his individuality. Therefore, devotees understand soham means that the Lord and Jiva are of the same quality, but they still continue to maintain their individuality. So far, Sanat Kumara spoke about bhakti, which is mixed with jnana. Exactly what Abhishek Prabhu correctly pointed out. Sanat Kumar realized that Prithu Maharaj's distaste for the words so asmi. Therefore, Kumaras now speak on pure devotional service as the ultimate point to where we have to reach. Chandan Prabhu, continue 3940 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 39. The devotees who are always engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord can very easily overcome hard-knotted desires for fruitive activities. Because this is very difficult, the non-devotees, the jnanis and yogis, although trying to stop the waves of sense gratification, cannot do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. Text 40. The ocean of nescience is very difficult to cross because it is infested with many dangerous sharks. Although those who are non-devotees undergo severe austerities and penances to cross the ocean, we recommend that you simply take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are like boats for crossing the ocean. Although the ocean is difficult to cross, by taking shelter of his lotus feet, you will overcome all dangers. Hare Krishna.
So one can give up inferior desires by being engaged in superior desires, meaning engage in devotional service of the Lord. So we have to here realize and thank the previous acharyas who have given us these subsections just so that we understand the whole thought process. Exactly to the point Abhishek Prabhu asked the question that if you look at individual verses, then we get confused that what is this Bhagavatam saying? We have to focus on the four Purusharthas. But then there's a whole thought process going through with a series of verses, as well as in Srimad Bhagavatam, we have these unit divisions to understand a thought process going on. So we all should thank the previous acharyas who have made this simple for us to understand. Abhishek Prabhu, crystal clear now?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Shivangi?
Prabhuji, sorry, could you remind me again the level of conversation right now? It's still Maitreya Muni talking to Vidura, like from Canto 3, like that's what's happening right now.
You are correct.
Okay.
So
Thank
this is the longest conversation in Srimad Bhagavatam. The Maitreya Muni and Vidura's conversation is the longest conversation in Srimad Bhagavatam. Very good. And Shivangi, very good to inquire this, to visualize where I am in this vast ocean of 18,000 verses. Very good. Shalini Kopa.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just one question. In the translation, it says, although those who are non-devotees undergo severe austerities and penances to cross that ocean. Prabhu, non-devotees, what austerities are they doing and penances?
So they will do some yajna, they will do some charity, they may even do some fasting. But Krishna has clearly explained in Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, around verse 53-54, that by doing austerity, by doing charity, by study of Vedas, you cannot understand me. Then he goes on to explain that only by devotional service one can see me as I am standing in front of you. Shalini?
Yeah, Prabhu. So this is again connecting to, I think, what we did last week, where there are many people who do not, atheistic people or people who do not recognize the supremacy of God. They just keep doing all good things and be good and, think that they will attain, Prabhu.
Correct.
Thank you.
Very good. So rest of the verses are very straightforward. We are only going to read translations in a minute or so. So part 3 is verses 41-48. Title is Prithu Maharaj praises the Kumaras. Straightforward verses where Prithu Maharaj praised the Kumaras, gave up everything and said, all this knowledge that you have given us is non-repayable debt. And Prabhupada goes on to say that only ignorant people will try to repay this, but actually all this knowledge is non-repayable. Abhishek Prabhu, 41-48 translation, straightforward verses.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Am I audible?
Yeah, 41-48.
Text 41. The great sage Maitreya continued. Being thus enlightened in complete spiritual knowledge by the son of Brahma, one of the Kumaras who was complete in spiritual knowledge, the king worshipped them in the following verse 42. The king said, O Brahmana, O powerful one, formerly Lord Vishnu showed me his causeless mercy, indicating that you would come to my house, and to confirm that blessing you have all come. My dear Brahmana, you have carried out the order thoroughly because you are also as compassionate as the Lord. It is my duty, therefore, to offer you something. But all I possess are but remnants of food taken by great saintly persons. What shall I give? 44. The king continued, therefore, my dear Brahmanas, my life, wife, children, home, furniture, and household paraphernalia, my kingdom, strength, land, and especially my treasury, all are offered unto you. 45. Since only a person who is completely educated according to the principles of Vedic knowledge deserves to be commander in chief, ruler of the state, the first to chastise, or the proprietor of the whole planet, Prithu Maharaj offered everything to the Kumaras. The Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras eat their food by virtue of the Brahmanas' mercy. It is the Brahmanas who enjoy their own property, clothe themselves with their own property, and give charity with their own property. 47. Prithu Maharaj continued, how can such persons who have rendered unlimited service by explaining the path of self-realization in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and whose explanations are given for our enlightenment with complete conviction and Vedic evidence, be repaid except by folded palms containing water for their satisfaction? Such great personalities can be satisfied only by their own activities, which are distributed among human society out of their unlimited mercy. Text 48. The great sage Maitreya continued, being thus worshipped by Maharaj Prithu, the four Kumaras who were masters of devotional service became very pleased. Indeed, they appeared in the sky and praised the character of the king, and everyone observed them.
All right, straightforward verses that Prithu Maharaj gave up everything. And he says, my family is what I can offer in service. And he says, this is non-repayable debt. And similarly, till part 4, verses 49 to 63 are also straightforward. Title is Prithu Maharaj's Glorious Rule and Qualities. So 49 to 55 describe the glorious rule of Prithu Maharaj. Shivangi, 49 to 55 translation.
Text 45. Since only a person who is completely educated according to the principles of Vedic knowledge deserves to be commander-in-chief, ruler of the state, the first to chastise or the proprietor of the whole planet, Prithu Maharaja offered everything to the Kumaras. The Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras eat their food by virtue of the Brahmanas' mercy. It is the Brahmanas who enjoy their own property, clothe themselves with their own property, and give charity with their own property. Prithu Maharaja continued, how can such persons who have rendered unlimited service by explaining the path of self-realization in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and whose explanations are given for our enlightenment with complete conviction and Vedic evidence, be repaid except by folded palms containing water for their satisfaction? Such great personalities can be satisfied only by their own activities, which are distributed amongst human society out of their unlimited mercy. The great sage Maitreya continued, being thus worshipped by Maharaja Prithu, the four Kumaras, who were masters of devotional service, became very pleased. Indeed, they appeared in the sky and praised the character of the king, and everyone observed them. Amongst great personalities, Maharaja Prithu was the chief by virtue of his fixed position in relation to spiritual enlightenment. He remained satisfied as one who has achieved all success in spiritual understanding. Being self-satisfied, Maharaja Prithu executed his duties as perfectly as possible according to the time and his situation, strength, and financial position. His only aim in all his activities was to satisfy the absolute truth. In this way, he duly acted. Maharaja Prithu completely dedicated himself to be an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendental to material nature. Consequently, all the fruits of his activities were dedicated to the Lord, and he always thought of himself as a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of everything. Maharaja Prithu, who was very opulent due to the prosperity of his entire empire, remained at home as a householder. Since he was never inclined to utilize his opulences for the gratification of his senses, he remained unattached, exactly like the sun, which is unaffected in all circumstances. Being situated in the liberated position of devotional service, Prithu Maharaja not only performed all fruitive activities but also begot 5 sons by his wife Ajji. Indeed, all his sons were begotten according to his own desire. After begetting 5 sons named Vijitashva, Dhumrakesha, Haryaksha, Dravina, and Vrika, Prithu Maharaja continued to rule the planet. He accepted all the qualities of the deities who governed all other planets. Since Prithu Maharaja was a perfect devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he wanted to protect the Lord's creation by pleasing the various citizens according to their various desires. Therefore, Prithu Maharaja used to please them in all respects by his words, mentality, works, and gentle behavior.
All right, so glorious rule of Prithu Maharaj, which Vidura also asked this question, therefore Maitreya Muni is describing. Similarly, verses 56 to 63 describe the qualities of Prithu Maharaj are also straightforward verses. Gopal, 56 to 63 translations.
Hare Krishna, text 56. Maharaja Prithu became as celebrated a king as Somaraja, the king of the moon. He was also powerful and exacting, just like the sun god, who distributes heat and light and at the same time exacts all the planetary waters. Text 57, translation. Maharaja Prithu was so strong and powerful that no one could disobey his orders, and any more one could conquer fire itself. He was so strong that he was compared to Indra, the king of heaven, whose power is insuperable. On the other hand, Maharaja Prithu was also as tolerant as the earth and is fulfilling various desires of human society. He was like heaven itself. Text 58. Just as rainfall satisfies everyone's desires, Maharaja Prithu used to satisfy everyone. He was like the sea in that no one could understand his depths, and he was like Meru, the king of hills, in the fixity of his purpose. Text 59. Maharaja Prithu's intelligence and education were exactly like that of Yamaraja, the superintendent of death. His opulence was comparable to the Himalaya mountains, where all the valuable jewels and metals are stoked. He possessed great riches like Kuvera, the treasure of the heavenly planets, and no one could reveal his secrets, for they were like the demigod Varunas. Text 60. In his bodily strength and in the strength of his senses, Maharaja Prithu was just as strong as the wind, which can go anywhere and everywhere. As far as his intolerance was concerned, he was just like all the powerful Rudra expansion of Lord Shiva or Sadashiva. Text 61. In his bodily beauty, he was just like Cupid, and in his thoughtfulness, he was like a lion. In his affection, he was just like a Swambhu Manu, and in his ability to control, he was like Lord Brahma. Text 62 translation. In his personal behavior, Prithu Maharaja exhibited all good qualities and spiritual knowledge. He was exactly like Brihaspati. In self-control, he was like the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. As far as his devotional service was concerned, he was a great follower of devotees who were attached to cow protection and the rendering of all service to the spiritual master and the Brahmanas. He was perfect in his shyness and in his gentle behavior, and when he engaged in some philanthropic activity, he worked as if he were working for his own personal self. Text 63. Throughout the whole universe, in the higher, lower, and middle planetary systems, Prithu Maharaja's reputation was loudly declared, and all ladies and saintly persons heard his glories, which were as sweet as the glories of Lord Ramachandra. Hare Krishna. Thus ends
Go ahead, read.
Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 22nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, titled Prithu Maharaja's meeting with the 4 Kumaras. Hare Krishna.
We are just about at 12 noon Toronto time. In essence of time, let me quickly give you a lot of spiritual endeavor questions right now. Number 1. The Krishna consciousness movement has started for what purpose? Is from verse 23. Second, how should a devotee relate to different types of religious systems? From verse 24. How should a devotee deal with sickness? This third question is also from verse 24. Number 4 question. List 5 kinds of material attachments. Comes from verse 26. Fifth question. Describe perfect idea of oneness between the soul and supersoul. Comes from 27. And for next class, read Canto 4, Chapter 23. Hare Krishna, everybody will stop here.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.